You guide it.
You guide it. Hey, you guide it. Hey, guys, Captain Matt here with the Lighting Trade School podcast, a podcast of landscape lighting. I have here Mr. Glow Daddy, Glo Show Shane. Never know which name he wants to go by. And then, of course, the Illuminator, Nate Mullen. Welcome back, boys. It's been a while since all three of us have been on a podcast together.
I will correct you there. I always go by Glo Show Shane. You're the one who throws in Glow Daddy Duffy sometimes. You're the only one. Well, maybe not the only one, but one of very, very few.
Wait a second. I remember vividly you, me, and Nate, and Nate's backyard when we were coming up with the Lighting Trade School. We didn't even know what it was going to be called yet. And you said to Nate, like, I know he's Captain Matt. I'm going to be Glow Daddy. And Nate said, I am never going to call you Daddy. I didn't make up Glow Daddy.
I remember that. That was so 2024, man.
I know, but I just remember when we used to call you Daddy. I'm going back in the days to call you Daddy.
That's right. Oh, man. Well, you'll always be Glow Daddy in my book.
Yeah, funny story. I had a year in my life where I was a pimp.
Oh, jeez. Well, that's a podcast right there. Holy moly.
Just,
oh my God.
Just messing. I've got some funny stories, but pimping ain't one. All right.
Oh, Lord.
All right. So, let's get to lighting.
We just did our Illuminati Lounge Club call. We were actually talking about like commercial Christmas and kind of working on that alongside of your landscape lighting and stuff like that. Cool calls that happen once a week. But me, Nate, and Shane were just talking, and Shane got a call from a client concerned because he got other estimates and about his yard being ripped up. So Shane, walk us through real quick, because I know you you were late to this podcast because you got that call. Tell us a little bit about what's happening and let's talk about it.
So, yeah, I thought it might be a good topic. And I like to talk to you guys, right, the audience, just about real stuff that's happening in our lighting business and life. And this customer, I think it's maybe an $8,000 proposal. And he's getting multiple proposals. He told me, hey, I'm going to get multiple proposals, which I gave him, by the way, 10 questions you should ask your lighting contractor. Nice. And maybe he used some of those questions. I'm not sure. I didn't ask. But he did say, like, hey, Shane, like these other contractors, like multiple ones mentioned, that they asked me, hey, we're going to need to go through your yard and get wired all these trees. You know, we're going to have to trench through it and kind of mess it up a little bit. Is that going to be okay? And the customer's thinking like, well, no, like you're trying to make my yard look better, not worse. And that like made him step back, and he was very, very concerned. And I could only imagine these guys are like literally like using a geo trencher or actually messing up his yard versus just making a surgical line that they tuck wire in following a border. So I don't know what they did, but I was like, no, like we would never do that. I was like, here's the reason I don't ask you, is because no one knows, you know, where our wire went. Like you wouldn't even know if I told you. He's like, okay. And then they're talking about crossing concrete, how they're going to need to dig, go under that. And it might look a little messy for a couple of weeks. I was like, well, no. Like, we don't do that either. Like, we do everything the easy way. So it was a little mind blowing that other contractors are mentioning this to the client. And it's also a little mind blowing that there's that many like top competitors in my area that are just doing it the wrong way. So I want to make sure, hey, folks that listen to this podcast aren't doing it the wrong way. So let's talk about doing it the right way.
Well, before we talk about that, let's talk about when I hear that story, I'm like, were your competitors trying to build value in terms of like, oh, this is going to be hard. It's going to be messy. We got to dig, like trying to charge them more, or were they just trying to get out of a job, or they just don't know what the fuck they're doing? I guess that's
no. I think they were either trying to build value in what they were doing, or they were trying to charge more. Because he actually asked, "Hey, are you going to cross my concrete? Is that included in the proposal, or is that extra?" So I'm guessing, yeah, that's a good point.
Interesting, Nate. When you hear that, what's your immediate thought that comes up? Is that just a contractor not being smart, or is that him trying to prepare the client because he really will make a mess? What do you think when you first hear that story?
I think they're not being smart. I don't think it has to do with building value, because I think that would be I don't think that would be a smart play. I just don't think that I just don't think they're back old school, just using a fucking shovel, doing probably even a trenching shovel, 4-inch wide trenching shovel, and they could be doing something that I see and have seen a lot, to where I was guilty my first, I'm going to say 5 or 10, 20 jobs, whatever. We used to use a 4-inch trenching shovel and go down 6, 8 inches. So when you're going to go down depth, and I'm going to say anything deeper than 6 inches is depth, you have to destroy the yard because you have to use a trenching shovel. At the very minimum, a trenching shovel. So you're destroying the fucking yard. So we found out that the deeper we went, and this comes, obviously back from electrical days, we had to go down deep. So we would go down deep thinking that we were protecting the wire. What we found out is in our going back, that we found a lot of wires were cut. So the deeper we went, the more cut wires we had, because the homeowner would come in and say had a tree or something, where the landscapers being super, super aggressive with the shovel, like shoving it in the ground, digging the hole, cut the fucking wire. So we started going shallow, like 1 inch down, except, we go across the side, you got to go down maybe 6 inches because of variation, but typical bed and whatever. We started going shallow. So then obviously somebody could grab the wire, pull it up, shake it, pull it out of the ground very, very easy. Helped in relocation for fixtures, because deep in the wire, you can't relocate the wire. So we started going shallow. And then when you go shallow, you're not destroying the yard at all. Now you can put a thin slice in the dirt or the sod or whatever, and no destroying the yard. So it could be a depth issue, not anything else, right? But I will tell you, it reminded me about not destroying a yard. So, it takes time. You could argue, and I think we all agree that one of the hardest things to do in landscape lighting is burying the wire, right? It's time consuming. You have to be diligent to do a good job so you don't destroy the yard. So I came up with a really good idea one day. I took a Sawzall. We all know what a Sawzall is, reciprocating Sawzall. And I took a long blade, probably like an 8-inch blade, drilled a hole in it, put a piece of jack chain in it, like a 12, 18-inch piece of jack chain. And then what I did is I used the saw that would slice through the grass, slice through the yard, going down about 6, 8 inches. Anyway, that was the stupidest idea I ever came up with in my life. All I did was cut about fucking 15 sprinkler pipes, right? It was fast and really a smart idea, but I destroyed the irrigation system. It's like, this is
we used to use a chainsaw, just like an old crappy chainsaw I had, just to rip up the ground real quick on harder grass or harder dirt. And that's a good idea until you bust like a main water line or something. And then you never do that again.
I should have seen this coming, right?
So obvious looking back.
Oh my God.
Man.
But,
all right, so obviously they're doing trenching wrong, right way, right? Matt calls it a pizza blade, but right, like a rounded trenching shovel. You go in at an angle. I lift it up a little bit, and then I tuck the wire in, go super quick, and then we step back over the crack, and it's very invisible. It looks just like a surgical slit, and within a week or two, like you would never know it's even there. And then we always water the border. What's that?
Tell them to water the grass after you're done, right? Because there's that, you're going to kill the grass just on that little surgical slit. So when we leave, there's like maybe like a 1/2 inch or an inch, whatever it is, like, where the grass dies down for a couple weeks, and because you just, ripped its roots out or cut through them.
So, and then we always follow a border. So like, it's not just going through the middle of the yard, right? We'll go like to the left, follow the border, go to the right, and get back to the tree. So there's always, if you do it the same way every single job, you kind of know where your wires would be. We never just randomly diagonally go through a yard. It's very, very rare we would do that. So like, even if it was on the side, like, it still wouldn't be very noticeable. So don't be the guy that's doing it wrong out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Just going in the middle of the grass is going to be, even with the one slit, right? I mean, sometimes you need to, right? If there's no border, there's been plenty of times there's yards everywhere, right? If you get to these big properties. But I also we mentioned the pizza paddle. Also just like a straight, like, I think I don't even know what they're called. It's like a bull nose shovel, I believe. And you still get some weight on it because with that pizza paddle, those things get heavy. So they wear your crew out pretty fast.
My guys just like square shovel, flat square shovel. That was it.
We call it the company workout initiative. So saying that, you made me think of one other thing, and now I'm like even forgetting what I was going to say. It was a good one. Oh, wire. So varivolt system. So we all like to use the varivolt system on probably 95% of our jobs. Me, I'd probably even say closer to 100%. But we use less wire and less smaller gauge wire, right? Because we're running a 24-volt system. Voltage drop really isn't an issue with us because all of our lamps can range between 10 and 30 volts. So when we're trenching far away, our trenches are less because we're not having to run two 12-2 home runs. We're only running one 14-2 home run. Yeah. Or if it's a smaller job and we're not going more than 40, 50 feet, well, then we can just use 18 gauge. So there's a much smaller wire and less home runs when you're doing a varivolt system. Yeah, as far as I know, Lifetime Lighting Systems is the only one that offers that. Sorry, Matt, what were you saying?
No, I'm saying so there's less trenching in terms of one wire versus four. I was actually just saw on Facebook in one of the groups, the guy was going a couple hundred feet or whatever it was, and the recommendations would go like 8 gauge wire and find a unique transformer that goes up to 22 volts AC and run 8 gauge wire and run like 3 or 4 of them all the way down. And I'm like, damn, like that's expensive. Like 8 gauge wire is no joke.
Expensive, at least $1 a foot.
Yeah.
God, and then probably
$2 a foot. So even more.
10 gauges a dollar.
It was funny because if they're recommending a 22 volt AC magnetic transformer, and we know Nate's also the manufacturer of Lifetime Lighting, and he has a 24, 26 volt DC system, and people come after him about how it's too high. Yet here's those same guys recommending a 22 volt AC system. So it's kind of funny to me to see that the code that they reference that kind of tries to shit on Lifetime Lighting is just ignored when they need it, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is hilarious. But man, I can't even imagine multiple 8.2 runs, and you need a 22 volt tap. Holy shit!
That's a thick wire. Now you have to go down 4 to 6 inches just to get two 8.2s in there, much less 4. So the part 2 of that question, right, was the concrete. Like they're saying they're going to have to dig things up and, make a mess. I just have to assume that they're like water jetting or they're doing this to the driveway as well as the sidewalk, which would just be a nightmare. I've never even attempted to go underneath the driveway. That just sounds way, way, way too much work. Unless like you absolutely had to, but I've never come across a scenario where you have to. So Nate, I mean, you've trained landscape guys, all over the nation. Is it common? Do you think there's listeners out there that are still like crossing sidewalks, doing it the really hard way by water jetting or some form of that going underneath the sidewalk versus just going over it?
I think it's super common that people still water jet. I mean, we used to water jet back in the day, and I mean, it makes a fucking mess like you can't believe. You got to dig a big hole because you got to put a high, a water jet stream nozzle on it, whatever you would call that stupid thing.
Right, you got to get the angle right, so you got to have a big hole.
Yeah, you got to have a big hole, and you got to, attach a pipe to it to water jet under the thing. And I hated undermining the driveways. It always scared me. But before we started cutting the concrete, we would water jet too. Now I can't remember the last time I water jetted a property. We cut like we do. We always cut the concrete. Now if someone's going to be out there listening, going, "Well, we water jet because we have to go across some beautiful paver driveway that you're not going to cut." I understand that, but that paver driveway is always going to hit a dissimilar right? Subject matter like concrete, asphalt, something. There's going to be where it meets another dissimilar surface. And that's even if I have to run an extra 100 feet, right? Which would be 100 feet, cross it 100 feet back, 250 feet, who gives a shit? Yeah, that's where I cut the concrete at. I don't like undermining, destroying the property, and let alone the chance of, you don't know how much of a hole you're doing in the middle
Yeah.
of that driveway, right?
Yeah, you don't know if that's a 4-inch slab or if it's pavers on top of a 4-inch slab, and then you got 8
Creating a
inches or
sinkhole.
whatever.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
And I did
Yeah.
the same. That's when I started. I was using that big red bar that you can put you just sledgehammer it, and same
No,
thing, right? We're
right.
hitting bases and all this shit, and it would take hours to cross a 36-inch pathway. And then when I do because I run up, we have lots of blacktop here, and when someone usually when they take care of it, right, like it looks nice. It's like one flat piece of blackness, right? So
right.
there was like, oh, how are you going to get across it? Well, your driveway always meets the road, and the road never looks pretty. So there's always a gap between here's the pretty driveway and here's the road. We just use a saw and make that a little bit wider, and put it there. So hey, not even near, not cutting up your blacktop, because blacktop doesn't have any expansion joints or anything like that, and that's what we have mainly up here.
What's your best saw blade for cutting asphalt?
Well, I don't really cut the asphalt, so I don't know. I cut. You come up to the literally where the road meets the driveway. It's just always.
There's always
already,
a gap.
Yeah. It just. I think there's blacktop, and then there's something else. But yeah, I'd have to look at the ones we use. One time we used this one, it just melted everything. Wasn't really cutting it.
Well, that's why I was asking, because that's typically what happens. It starts melting the asphalt.
My guy called me like, this is just making a black soup. I don't know what's happening. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Just cut the thing.
Yeah.
We don't cross a lot of asphalt where I'm at. If anything, we find where asphalt meets concrete, and that's where we'll run across. So going back to just driveway, sidewalk. I mean, so the correct way that we do it, at least 95% of the time, is we just run a double grinder blade and just whatever Milwaukee skill saw you have. We've got big ones, we've got small ones, we've got corded ones, we've got battery ones, but we typically just use the battery powered one, two blades, and we just go across it. It takes 5-10 minutes, maybe a driveway's 15 minutes. And then we run our wire through that, caulk it over, self-leveling caulk, just put it back over. We'll sprinkle the concrete dust back over it so it just all blends in. Sometimes it's deep enough and you have a thin enough wire, you don't even need to caulk it back over. The expansion joint's just big enough to do that. I will say though, at the end, Nate taught me this. So about 4 inches or so from the edge, you want to get a 3/8 concrete bit and go from the crack to the grass. So you run your wire down through that hole and through the grass, so your wire is not just going over the curb of the concrete. So your wire is never hidden or seen, and it's impossible for like a weed whacker or an edger to hit it. And that's how we do it.
So the only, which is, yep, the way we've done it forever, double stacking the blades. But we can share with the guys out there that you can now use a single blade, because we have that special Duramax wire custom made for us, which is a 22 gauge with 100% waterproof THHN on the inside with an outer jacket, and it lays flat, and it's super, super thin. I mean, like thinner than a saw blade. So you can now do a single cut. And now when you do the single cut, you just hit a chain. Now you don't even have to use self-leveling caulking. You can just throw dirt back in it.
It's so small, and it tucks in there really, really easy. So we do use that. It's just on a scenario we have 30 lights on the other side of the driveway or something. We're not going to use a 20 gauge wire. That's where we'll just use a 14 something.
Right. That's when you have to use a bigger gauge wire. Yep.
Right. So so that's the easy way. Hope everyone, if anyone is like lost on how to do that, part of what we do in the Illuminati Lounge, my hat's Illuminati Lounge, is $47 a month. We've got a library of videos on stuff like this, exactly how to do that, and we talk about lighting an hour every single week. It's a no-brainer if you're in the industry.
Where do they go to sign up for that?
lightingtradeschool.com.
lightingtradeschool.com.
But
All right, guys.
if you're listening, you should know that. But just in case.
Just in case.
I think
All right.
you need a little jingle when you say lightingtradeschool.com.
Oh, great. Here we go. Now Shane's going to go down the rabbit hole of an AI jingle for Lighting Trade School next
Right.
week
I
on Lighting
know.
Trade School.
I know a guy who's a master at making cool songs. I'm going to do that for you, Nate.
All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll talk to you.
Later, James.
Hey, Matt.